Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Paper Crafting Thursday. I'm Leslie Watkins. So I hope everybody's feeling well today. I'm going to be continuing with a project that I started yesterday. So if you tuned in yesterday, you saw me do a quick watercolor border that I'm going to be using to decorate a gift box, which I'm going to show you how to assemble today. So let's get started. So the gift that I'm making is for a friend who loves to play word games, as do I. And this is a very cute little set. It contains 12 dies that have letters on each side, and you just roll the dies, and then you make a little kind of a crossword puzzle using as many of the dies as possible. And I think my friend, who was my host in Portugal, is going to love this. And so I'm kind of excited to send this to her. But I also want to make a special little box. And because the colors and the views from her beautiful apartment in Lisbon were so unique, I wanted to do something that related to it. So yesterday I just did this very light watercolor background, and my thought was that I would use these, or I would divide this into 4 sections and use it on the sides, and I would use this on the lid. So that's what I'm going to be decorating the box with. But for the box itself, I pulled out some blue cardstock, and I thought this looked really nice with the painting. And I'm going to need 2 pieces, a larger piece for the bottom of the box and a smaller piece for the top of the box. But I haven't even measured the box yet, so I'm going to show you today how I get started creating a box. So I just got a scrap piece of paper here, and I'm going to do a little bit of measuring. And so the box, where's my ruler? And I of course want the box to be slightly bigger, the outer box to be slightly bigger than the gift, because I want to be able to go in and out easily. So I'm going to say 3 1/4 wide. And then it has this little latch on there, so I have to accommodate that as well. And so I'm going to say, also the hinges have a dimension. So really, it's deceptive, but really I think that needs to be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 as well. So I'm just going to say a square box, and then we have a height of about 2 1/2, and I don't see anything else protruding. So 2 1/2 should be good by 2 1/2. So there we go. Those are the measurements. And so that would be the width, the depth, and the height. All right, so I've made note of those numbers, and then because I want this box to be a reinforced box, in other words, I want the sides excuse me, to be doubled up so it's nice and strong, I'm going to say that so the 2 1/2 is the height of the box. I'm going to have to double that, so the flaps can turn under. So that's going to give me 5. So those are the measurements of the box. Now what I need to do is I need to add that all up and make sure that I have a large enough piece of paper. And the sides, by the way, are going to be doubled again because they're on both sides. Alright, so here is my 12 by 12 cardstock. I'm going to get out my trimmer. And I'm just going to start scoring based on these measurements. So I'm going to have 2.5, and I'm thinking to myself, I think I also want to add a little piece of tissue paper just to make it a little more decorative. So I'm going to add 1/4 inch actually overall, and so that would be 1/8 of an inch here. So I'm going to make this, thinking, do I really want to do this? Let's keep it simple for now, because I don't want to get into fussy measurements to throw you off. So let's just keep it simple. So the first fold is going to be at 2.5. Going to get my cutting blade out of the way. The second one at 5. And then I'm going to measure from that fold at 3 1/4. So 3 1/4 inches is right here. I think I am going to go with that extra little bit. I'm going to bump it up to 3 1/2. So let me find my, I can look at the, you can't see, but at the bottom of the trimmer I can see 3 1/2 down here as well. So I'm going to use that measurement where I can see it. So there's my 3 1/2. And that's not going to give me enough. All right, that's not going to give me enough, because if I add this together, 5 plus the 3 1/2 exceeds the 12. So don't make the mistake I just made. We're not going to be able to do a reinforced box on the bottom, just on the lid. I was hoping that this box was going to be small enough. So okay, so all I'm going to do, I can fix this, so I'm just going to cut off this edge. I'm going to make this much clearer for you in just a minute. But there is my, so start again. So the side flap is at 2 1/2. And then we're going to do 3 1/2. This is what happens when you design on the fly. 3 1/2. And then again at 2 1/2. All right, so that's what we're looking for. 2 1/2. 3 1/2, 2 1/2, and that's going to give me a total of 8 inches. So I can just measure that right on here. Oh, sorry, 8 1/2 inches. Wait, I am having a time here today. Sorry, hold on everybody. Let me just double check everything. 2 1/2. And 3 1/2. Oh, because there we go, 3 1/2, because I forgot the half up there. 8 1/2 inches. So for this box, you could actually use an 8 1/2 by 11 piece of cardstock for the base as well. Now for the top, I'm going to do exactly the same, and this time I'm hopefully not going to confuse you as much as I just did. So you would do this just the same, top and bottom. So I'm going to go back to the 2.5 mark. Get my cutting blade out of the way. So 2.5, and then I'm going to move this up to 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 8.5. So it looks like this. So your start size is 8.5 by 8.5 inches. You're going to score at 2.5 and 6. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip up to that scored intersection, and I'm going to do that on each side, and I'm cutting right on the score line. So I have something that looks like this. Now what I want to do is I want to angle cut the tabs. So I'm just taking a little sliver. I'm going to do that on each tab. Okay, and this is the bottom of my box. And I've got my bone folder. I'm just going to fold these in so that you can see a little bit better. Okay. And I'm going to do a dry fit, so I'm just going to pretend, I'm not going to glue. I'm just going to push the box together like so and see how this fits. And there it is. And I've got enough room in here so that I can add some tissue paper and make it a little bit fluffy. So that's fine. But before I glue the sides together, I want to add my artwork. But before I start tearing my artwork, I'm going to do the top of the box as well. So for the lid, we go back to our measuring. This time, so this is the bottom. And then the lid, get rid of these scraps. Now the lid I want to be a little bit shorter. In other words, Let me put this together so I can show you what I mean. So when the box is assembled, I want the lid only to come down to about here. All right, and that would be approximately 1 inch. So for the lid of the box, it's also going to be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, but instead of the sides being 2 1/2, it's only going to be 1, and I'm going to do that 4 times because I want to have the flaps or the sides doubled up to make it really strong and hold the box together nicely. So that's going to be 4 inches. So the overall size of the paper is going to be 4 plus 3 1/4, which is 7 1/4. Okay, so 1 inch on, or I'm sorry, 2 inches on each side equals 4. When I say each side, I mean each opposite side, because the same measurement is going to be on the in the depth as well as the width. And so I'm going to go ahead and take my paper and I'm going to cut this at 7 1/4, and let's see, I'm going to because I have enough paper, I'm going to add an 1/8 of an inch. So I'm actually going to make that 7 3/8. All right, so if I look at the measurement, here's the 7, that's 1/4 plus a little bit more. It's actually 5/8. Okay, so there's my piece. So 7 1/4 plus 1/8, that's 5/8. 7 1/4, I'm just double checking, 5/8. And now again, I'm going to score. This time I'm using the 1 inch mark on the right side of the trimmer because it's easier for me to see. And I'm going to get that lined up. Give that a good score. Flip it around. Go to my 2. And I'm going to do that on each side. Now you can measure 1 inch on this side as well, but I just find that it's a little easier to hold the paper perpendicular to the guard rail there if I do it on the right hand side. Okay, so there are my scores, and now I'm going to double check my center, make sure that this equals 3 1/2, and it does. I'm sorry, I meant 3 1/4. Double check. No, it is 3 1/2. Oh my gosh. All right, so this is turning into a comedy of errors here, and I apologize, everybody. Usually I have the boxes ready to go, so you don't have to see me going through all the measurement. But I think it's also good for you to see that, you know, sometimes you have to do things a couple of times. So let's see if I can do this more clearly. What happened was I wrote the wrong number here, and you're probably all screaming out there, no, no, it's 3.5. So 3.5. Measure twice. 3.5. 3.5. I wrote the wrong number. 3.5. 3.5. So that equals 9. 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 7.5. Oh my gosh! Now I'm rattled. All right, let's do it again. I'm going to try to do this fast. So 7.5, and I'm just going to make this a tiny bit more. So 7.5 plus 1/8. So 7.5 plus 1/8. I'm just making the lid a tiny bit bigger so that it can accommodate the thickness of the paper of the bottom of the box. And now I'm going to very quickly go around. I'm going to do my 1 inch. And then on this side, I'm going to go ahead and do my 2 inch. All right, try again. There's my 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches, and we are good to go. All right, so now this time, make sure you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to cut twice in each corner, like that. I'm going to go around pinwheel style. Alright, so there's all 4 corners done. Then I'm going to go to the opposite corner and I'm going to angle cut that little piece off. So I have something that looks like this. Now what I want to do is snip off this little extra square here. I want to go back to the opposite corner. see this one, remember I angle cut that side. I want to do the right side now. Okay, and then finally I want to angle cut these tabs. And it's important to do these angle cuts because if you don't do the angle cuts, the thickness of the paper or the gain will cause the tabs to poke up, and you'll have a jagged edge along the edges of your boxes. Okay. Again, I'm going to fold this so that you can see it a little bit better. There we go. So that's our lid. And again, I can do a dry fit just by folding these in. Okay, and then I can test that on my other piece to make sure everything fits. So I can pop that right in there, and I can see that that fits very nicely. Test it this way also, so both ways. So there's my box. And now, folks, we are ready to decorate. This piece that I measured wrong, I can still use and create a bottom for a different box, but just change the measurements. So I'm going to put that aside. I'll be able to use that for something else. I just keep my scraps inside a clear plastic envelope. That way I've got all my color pieces together. Okie dokie. Now, my artwork. When the box comes together, something like this. Actually, I can show you better just by measuring. The lid is going to come down and cover up about an inch of this part of the art. I want the sky to be on top and on the lid of the box, and I want the sides of the lid of the box to also have sky painted on them as well. So that's going to leave me with about 2.5 inches of artwork, and only 1.5 inches of that artwork is going to show when the lid is on. So therefore, if I do a quick measurement here, and I want to be able to get some of this green in here, I'm going to start by carefully tearing my paper. And I'm tearing my paper because I want it to have a beautiful rough edge, similar to the deckled edge that you see here. Okay, so that's the natural deckled edge. I want to imitate that. And because this is a thicker paper that I'm using, this, as I mentioned in the last video, this is 140 pound cold press paper. Typically for my journals and pages or for greeting cards, I'll use a lighter weight paper, but I want this box to have some rigidity to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that away. Save this. This is great for another project. And then I'm going to measure here. So what I'm going to do is, remember, the sides of my box are 2.5. So I'm just going to measure slightly less. So I'm going to call that 2.25. And I'm going to put a couple of little tick marks here. One there. One here. And then I'm going to carefully fold my paper right at those tick marks. So I don't know if that's going to show up on camera, but there's one tick mark. Here's the other one. Okay? And then I'm just going to continue here, and I can double check. That's 2.25. Okay, so that is what I'll use for the sides of the box, like so. Now, I'm going to need this for the sides of the lid also. You'll remember that that is only 1 inch wide, so I'm going to tear this at 3/4 of an inch. So same thing, I'm just going to put a couple of tick marks. At 3/4 of an inch. And this is going to be a little bit harder to fold simply because it's a smaller piece. So I'm going to be very careful here. Looking for my other mark. Checking. This one's a little okay. those marks. You know, there's also a tactile quality about the boxes that have the watercolor paper on the outside. This paper has a rough finish, so it has a little bit of a tooth to it, and it just kind of feels really nice. If you are a paper lover like I am, you know what I mean. You can always tell a fine quality piece of paper. Alright, so let's see if I can do this. I'll get it started. This is harder to do than the bigger pieces, but just go slow, kind of tease it along. There will be a little bit extra, so if there's a place that isn't up to standard, we'll be able to snip that away. Okay, so there is the sides of the box, and then this piece I'm going to use on the lid. So let's just get that started. One of the things that I have planned for this summer, as I mentioned yesterday, is I'm going to be going on to some women's meetups. And these are going to be car camping trips. And I'm really excited because I'm going to bring my watercolor kit with me. And I'm going to be sharing some of my watercolor sketching out in nature. And I'm trying to figure out, and I will figure it out, how to film out of doors, or video out of doors, so I can share the experience with you. And I'm going to be going to one meetup in New Hampshire and another one in Connecticut, and then I'm going to be going on some day trips on my own locally to some of the beautiful locations that are not far from where I live. So if anybody out there likes to do watercolor sketching, or if you think you might want to begin doing watercolor sketching, let me know. Sign up for notes from Dandelion Cottage, because I will be announcing the various locations in the next issue. So just go to, if you're watching on Facebook, there's a sign up button at the top of the page that'll bring you right there. If you're watching on YouTube, I will post the link in the description. And if you want to jump there ahead of time, you can go to dandelioncottagedesign.com, and there is a place where you can sign up for notes there as well. So I'm just going ahead now, and I've measured the art for the lid of the box at 3 1/4 inches because I want to have a little bit of a reveal around the edges. And all of these little scrap pieces, by the way, are useful, so don't throw those away. This is very good paper, and you can use it for all sorts of things, from bookmarks to making clusters to collage and or just flip it over and paint on the other side. So hang on to your good watercolor scraps. This is another reason that your bone folder is so indispensable, because it's going to give you these beautiful folds without rubbing the paper with your fingers. You do not want to get the oils from your fingers rubbed into the paper, because that's just going to collect dirt and stain, and it's not going to look nice. So that's what the lid will look like, something like that. And I want to do something else. So you need a piece of scrap paper. Where's my scrap paper? There we go. I want to protect this box because it's going to be handled a little bit, and so I have a micro glaze here, which is a paper protector. There's a bunch of different products available. This is just one of many. You can, you can also use a kind of a wax, but I'm going to use this, and I'm just going to grab a paper towel. And I'm going to use this to rub on the surface of the watercolor, and this will not, the watercolor is perfectly dry, so this is not going to disturb the paint that's on there. I'm going to pay special attention to the edges. Okay, and it leaves a kind of a sheen. I don't know if you can see that, but it also feels really nice. I'm going to do the same thing on this piece. Actually, let me tear it down before I apply the glaze, because I want that to get on the edges as well. So these pieces are going to measure about 3 1/4. And I'm going to start at this end. I want to make sure I have enough here. So let me just measure what we've got. Three and a quarter. I have plenty. Double check. want to be careful not to get the wax on the bottom of the pieces because I don't want to, I want the pieces to adhere well. So in the areas that I'm putting the glue, I want to make sure that I have good adhesion. There we go. And these are going to be the same. So 3 1/4. Okay, so now I can just go back. There we go. Anybody else out there that likes to go camping? I'm really excited to get back to camping. It's something that I used to do quite a lot of when I was younger. And I've been all through the eastern coast of Canada and New England. And I'm excited to get back to it. And maybe even go a little further west. I'm very interested in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It looks like a beautiful place to visit, and it's not too terribly far from here. I've also spent a lot of time in the Adirondacks, which I love. So that's another possibility. Now I want to keep the side pieces in order because I want them to read as you go around the box. And I'm just going to flip this around so I don't get wax on the back of these pieces. We'll start over here. Okay. So you can see how these beautiful little panels are just an impressionistic, abstract representation of the scene that I was experiencing from my friend's kitchen window. And I just love them. I love seeing the quality of the watercolor as it moves across the surface of the paper. There's no other medium like it. Well, you actually get close with some of the water-based inks if you use them the way you would watercolor, because a lot of times you can retain that transparency, which is part of the magic. Okay, So these are a little bit sticky. I'm just going to go back now and buff away the excess. When you use a good paper like this, it will withstand a lot of abuse and still hold up. I'm a firm believer in using the best quality supplies that you can afford, even if you're just beginning, because if you start on inferior quality paper or with less than wonderful tools, you're going to have to learn all over again when you start using the better supplies. So save time and get started on the right foot. That's why in my watercolor starter kit, and I'm just looking for a clean paper towel here. In my watercolor starter kit, there's no frills. It's just really nice quality materials that's going to get you started on the right foot, and you'll begin learning right out of the gate. Now, for those of you people out there who say, oh, I'm not artistic, I can't do that, you're an artist, you're so talented, it's simply not true. Everybody is creative. Everybody has the capacity to make something beautiful. You just have to get started on your journey, and you will start to find your way. So don't put it off, don't wait, just dive in. And you know, really, the truth is, it's not about the finished product. Now hold on here, I'm missing my lid. Oh, here it is. It's not about the finished product, it's about the doing. It's the journey itself that's so rewarding. It's so good for you. It's so satisfying. So just get out there and do it. And if you're interested and you'd like a little help, if I can share some of the techniques and how to begin with you, I'm happy to do that. So sign up for notes from Dandelion Cottage and you can learn much more. All right, so now I've got all my pieces. Okay, this is turning into a much longer video than I intended, but we're in the home stretch now. And I'm just going to wipe my hands because I'm all gunked up now. And I've got my glue. And I'm going to begin with the sides of my box. I want to be careful that these are all in the order I want them, and that looks pretty good. So I'll start here. I'm just going to apply a thin bead of glue close to the edge but not at the edge. A little bit on the inside, and then making sure I have the green at the bottom. Start placing these pieces on the sides. Okay, and once I've got it where I want it to be, I can go ahead and give that a little rub. Grab the next one, do exactly the same. And of course, if you've got some beautiful paper, and I know you do, if you're a paper crafter, I know you've got some beautiful decorative series paper in your stash, go ahead and use that. Use whatever you like. Just remember that when you're using a thicker paper, you want to make sure that your lid is a little bit bigger to accommodate the thickness of the paper. And I'm just going to flip this over, give that a good rub, double check that these are situated where I want them. And there you have it. Alright, now I can go ahead and put some glue on my flaps. Bring that in. Make sure that my corner is nice and square. Got a little glue, just wipe that away. Now, I was thinking of using some tissue paper on the inside of this particular box, but oftentimes what I'll do is I will add a decorative liner to the inside of the box too, and that's where some of the beautiful fine designer series paper prints are, I find, so valuable. I'm going to go ahead and get some glue on this flap. There you go. Tuck that in. Tuck that in. Check my corners. Give that a little press. Rub it down. Okay. Okay, so there is the bottom of my box, and I'm loving that. That looks really sweet. Now for my lid, and I'm just going to do the same thing on the sides of my lid. Oh, and by the way, let me point out that the sides of the lid are actually this piece, okay, because this flap is going to be turned under. So it's not at the edge, it's on the next rectangular portion. So be careful that you get your artwork on in the right area. Okay, so take a look at that. And then finally, my centerpiece. slide that into place. All right, now I'm giving it a good firm burnish. All right, so there's my lid. Just smoothing down those torn edges so that they don't peel off. Okay, and now I'm just going to add some glue to my tabs. And again, checking my corners, making sure that they meet up nicely. Just going to hold that for a moment till that grabs. Double check. It looks good. Now I can see that this little piece is sticking up a little bit. I missed that one when I was doing my angle cut, so I'm glad I caught it. So I'm just going to snip this away right now. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer. Okay, there we go. So now all these tabs are nice and even with the top. This one could use a little help too. All right, so you can do your last minute fine tuning. Just double check. Make sure everything's right where you want it to be. Okay, we're good to go. Now I'm just going to fold my flaps in. Now, once my box is complete, I want to personalize it. And to do that, I'm going to be using a new tag die set that I just got, and I will give you a peek of that in just a minute. And I'm going to create a matching tag for the box with a little note. I think it's going to be the kind of tag that opens up for an area inside for a message. And I'm going to go ahead and decorate that with some of the scrap pieces of the watercolor so that everything comes together beautifully. And then I'm also going to go down into my stash of ribbon. I'm going to find a nice ribbon that I like, that I think will look good with this box. So let's see how it comes together. Here's my present. I'll add my tissue paper. There's my lid. Here's how my box looks, unadorned, but it's nice and strong. And you know, this little box is kind of heavy, you know, because it's pretty much solid wood with all the contents and the metal hardware. So having a sturdy box like this to hold it all together just feels really good. And I mentioned that tactile quality earlier with the fine papers, and then also with the addition of the protective wax. It just feels so good. So it's hefty, it's made well, all of the edges come together beautifully. The inside of the lid is all finished with those reinforced flaps. I may or may not put something in the bottom of the box. When I find the ribbon that I want to use to tie the box closed, I'll adhere that to the bottom of the box, and then I'll put a protective cardstock, probably the same color. I'll just double it up so that it's nice and sturdy on the bottom, and it just has that little bit of extra weight down there. So there it is. I know I went a little bit long today, and I apologize for that. And sorry for the shaky beginning with the measurements, but it's a lot easier than I made it seem today. So so don't be afraid to try. Okay, you can do it, and just, you know, measure carefully. You have the formula. I gave you the formula. You can do a screenshot. Let me read you the correct numbers. So the start size for the bottom of the box is 8.5 by 8.5, and then you're going to score at 2.5 and at 6. The lid is going to be a start size of 7.5, and you're going to score at 1 inch and 2 inch on all 4 sides. And that should give you a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch box that has a height of 2.5. So I hope you'll give it a try. And if you do, please share in the Watercolor and Stampin' Up! Paper Crafting private group, because I love to see what you do there. And that's the spot where you can get a chance to show everybody your projects and your ideas, and we can all learn from one another and be inspired. Don't forget to subscribe to notes for the upcoming schedule and what I have planned this summer. I hope to see you, so please let me know if you're in the area, if you're going to be near any of the places that I'll be visiting. I'd really love to hook up with you. So stay well, stay happy, stay creative, and I will see you next time.